Hello and welcome to Stampscaping. I don't know if it's 101 or if it's just Stampscapes tweaks, I guess we can call it. I should have a separate playlist for that because, I don't know, it's doing some of these different types of, I don't know, whatever, tweaks, adjustments on existing pieces can be pretty significant. Whatever change or evolution in these pieces. Okay, so I'm looking at this piece. Let's get right to it. 8.5 by 11. Dye-based inks on glossy cardstock. It's been locked down with some, I believe it's Krylon triple thick because it looks really glossy to me, okay? So, everything's been stamped in, it would have been dye-based inks, except for this top portion. You could see how it's raised. It's because that is clear embossing of black, probably VersaFine Clear pigment ink. All right, so looking at this piece right here, it's definitely a kind of a monochromatic piece. It goes through some temperature changes in here from cooler blues to warmer ones. So we have a little bit of a change in temperature. But, you know, for a piece that's this large, I just felt that it needed some other kind of stronger earthy tones in here. We have a lot of changes in value, though, from light to dark, and there's good textural changes throughout this piece. We have the dynamics with the light rays, but still, to me, I don't know, it's missing something. So we're going to try to add some other types of, I don't know if it's elements, but looks into the piece. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to try here is to warm up some of these trees in the background. Okay, now, in a Moonlight scenario, you wouldn't have warmer tones and, you know, brown trees. Everything's kind of, you know, influenced by the lighting of that moon, but in this case, you know, we're not bound by, I don't know, whatever, real world convention, okay? That's the difference between artwork and something like photography, okay? If we're just going to, you know, limit ourselves by, you know, what you know the naked eye would see, then you know, it'd just be easier to use a camera to do what we do. So you want to kind of inject your own kind of aesthetics into your pieces. And I mean, things could reference nature, but just don't be bound by it if there are certain types of things that you think will look better. So, okay, so you can see these trees right here. They already look more full to me with that. In this case, this is a pen from my skin-toned alcohol set. I don't know what this is. It's just like a warm beige. Those are really good colors to have in your supplies. They're good for base layer colors. Okay, now I'm going over these light rays beams. I'm going to go and, because I don't want to work around them, I'll go back in and I'll reintroduce them when I'm done with all the coloring in here. All right, so it'll just be another layer. All right, so adding this down, that doesn't look so good there, but we need some extra tones in there too. And shadow work. And this one, I don't know, I guess I used alcohol pens. I can't remember exactly. Sometimes other people remember what I do on these scenes more than I do. It was pointed out to me, I did a tweaks video on this other one, and someone said, I think that's the second time you've tweaked that scene. I have no recollection of that. Okay, so there's those trees in there. So they look completely out of place now because they're taken out of the kind of the color scheme of the general, you know, overall. So we're creating a little bit of separation with temperature here and hue. on those trees. So what we want to do is we want to integrate them a little bit more, but being careful not to just do what I did to get rid of this overall kind of one note, color note scenario here. But having a little bit of this in here, at least in a very subtle way, like maybe in the shadows down here, we can add some of this brown tone into these cool, otherwise cool toned rocks. Okay, so I'll add it in the shadows. One of my professors once said that a lot of maybe the warmest tones are often in the shadows, okay? It doesn't mean it's like physically warmer in them, but just in terms of the color temperature of them, or their richer in appearance. They're just darker. Okay, so I'm just adding this right in these darker areas. But again, I do want to, yeah, that looks like so much better now. Just that little bit of change in value. I don't know, that blue on there, I mean, I like it, but it's just so easy to go back in and just add this little bit of a tweak in there. And I don't know, I think it's brought those shadows to life a little bit more. There's a separation in the rocks now too, between like that rock and that back one, where it kind of all blended in before with a kind of a uniform color scheme and or value scheme too. All right, now this is the original piece here is 8.5 by 11. If I get a little bit of tone on this piece of white paper, I'm not really going to care about it because that's going to get trimmed off. So even if your pieces are on heavy cardstock, you know, by the time you add all this media to it and you spray it, often it's kind of wobbly, so sometimes you can just flatten it out a little bit more if you take and you spray mount this piece onto another piece of paper. It's still a little bit bowed, you know, it's not perfectly flat, but it's a lot flatter than it was. And if this gets put into a frame or something like that, it'll have a lot more stability and stiffness, flatness. I'm adding a little bit more with this than I thought I would, because I like it a lot more with it. It's just so much richer. I usually see these types of colors as a base coat, but with transparent colors, I mean, you can add lighter tones on the top of something. It's not going to make them look lighter, but it can change, it can tweak the hue, temperature, depth a little bit more. Hello, Linda. Yeah, you have some 3 or 4 of them, and they're all great. This one, to me, it needed something, especially with some of the things that I've been doing lately. So I'll just see this, you know, kind of otherwise what I thought was finished as like a layer in between those sealants. So on this one, it's I'm pretty sure it's not a workable fixative. It's a Krylon triple thick. So this one's like super, super glossy and layered like that. But I went over this tree, Linda, with this beige right here, and it looks so much better to me now. And that's just the first color, so I'll keep layering it. But I don't know, these rocks just needed variation, so... and I don't know. I wasn't worried about changing the spirit of it because... it just needed some tweaks, I think, to bring it to life. Okay, one of the things that I did on this piece too, after I spray seal it, when you spray seal something with such a thick layer of media, you can lose a lot of the white. So I think my waterfalls back in here were a lot darker looking. It was like a dull white. So what I did before I started this video is I went back in here and I added these additions of some additional white pigment ink. I made it too white, but what I'll do is I'll go back in and I'll add a little bit of alcohol ink to these streams in the form of probably like a jewel tone blue or something, like a warm blue maybe, like something like this. But being careful not to just tone it all out, so I'll just bring some of it in to a part of it, but otherwise they're a lot lighter looking than they were before. So I just want to add a little bit of shadow to some of these streams in here. This is really subtle. I can barely see it and I'm right in front of it, but this is weird. I'm kind of picking up something off of this. It kind of smeared my image right in there. I'm not sure. I don't think I stamped this out in like a Claire or something. And even if I did, it was a while back, and I don't know why it's... I picked up some of that black. I just kind of kept wiping it off, so it just came off, so it's no big deal, but that was kind of strange. A little bit of a darker blue right here. I'm just kind of getting... I can see it. I need to be careful about this and not just go right into the white. Although I can probably use the blender pen and blend it out a little bit, but I just assume not have to do anything that I don't need to. Okay, here's another fall back here. See that, just that little hint of some blue in there. This one, it needs, yeah. This piece was missing, it was missing some kind of jewel toned elements. I mean, we don't need them everywhere, but we just need them in some select areas. So here's a little bit more shadow work in here. This seems to be like a theme of mine, huh? Where it's, I'm going back in and I'm changing rocks, or just, I don't know, I'm not changing them, but kind of enhancing them a little bit more. Color-wise, textural. That is really bright in there. Okay, that was blue. It was a little bit too much though, but it's just, it's all within kind of the process. It's just another layer. So let's see here. Let's go in and I'll mute it a little bit. I don't think, is this the one that I already used in here? So I'll blend that blue out a little bit, or a lot. I've already used a lot of the acrylic paint pens in here too, so I might be tinting some of those dots in there. They're really subtle because this area in here is really dark anyway. All right. Even though this has been spray sealed throughout here, it still feels a little bit kind of gritty, like I'm coloring chalk or something like that. And that's the white brilliance ink in here, the pigment ink that's lying on the surface. think this is the same color. Yeah, that's the same color. All right, so let's develop those trees a little bit more. Yeah, yeah. The biggest thing, though, Linda, on this one, it was all these dead areas in here. We got a lot of little of the splashes in here, but we're going to totally bring it to life. And our favorite cutout little person right here. That person right there, I'm going to put them right there on that waterfall. I thought about putting her right here. Kind of more in line with the Moonlight, but I want her right here. So I'm going to have to integrate her into the piece. I'll glue her down, and I'll put a shadow underneath her a little bit. But I'm going to put her right here, surrounded by like little fairies or something like that, little orbs. It's really going to change the entire character of the scene. And I don't know, give it a kind of just a stronger. Yeah, that's really dark. That is really dark. Okay, so what I'm doing right here is I'm just getting some of this tone laid out like that. So that I can drag and blend that out. So it's like if I was painting or something like that, it'd just be like putting some paint down that you're going to spread around with a palette knife or something like that. So you're kind of utilizing some of it. Oh, that really dried really fast on there. Okay, so that's not blending out as much as I thought it would. Let me go back to my blender pen. It's like super hot here and dry. I guess it's changing kind of the way these inks are applying. That really dried super, super fast. It's like affixed. I can usually blend it out real easy. The tones that I lay down on glossy cardstock, especially after it's been spray sealed. But this is not easy to blend here. It has really grabbed the surface. All right, note taken on that. All right. Let's just see. Yeah, it's too light. Some of the skin tone ones they look about the same to me. This one's a little bit warmer, I think. I usually don't like going with gray yet. I usually use that towards the end, but let's try it out. I need something. No, it's way too dark. Let's see. All right, let's use this one right here. Gray can sometimes kind of mute colors, which is good if that's what you want to do, but I like to go for a little bit of richness first. But I need to blend it in a little bit more too, so. Yeah, it needed that person, didn't it, Linda? Or just any kind of focal point, but I couldn't put a deer in here because there wasn't space or anywhere in the back. I guess I could put like a dark deer right here because this is light tree. But I just needed that. It needed it needed something. I don't know. Just I needed something with more charisma in here. It's like a good setting, but it's like a background for like an animated movie or something like that. We need, I don't know, some stronger focal point in here. And I thought she would really provide that. nicely. Okay, so this is purple, and I'm adding that into some of the deepest shadow areas. It's really quite, you know, I don't know. It's kind of, it's a little bit darker than you know, kind of like 50%, like a neutral. All right, so you see, I don't know if you can see that right in here, but it's a little bit of a slightly more purplish tinge in there. See, it was all like this blue-green before, okay? So, I mean, this is taking it into, you know, where blue, if you add a little yellow to it, it starts moving to the greens, and that's where you have the greens down here and the aqua. And then what we're doing is we're tweaking it. We have the blue tones, then we're adding a little bit of red to it, and it's moving it more into the magentas. So we've taken, you know, the color scheme, and it's like this, or on the color wheel. And then we're just kind of expanding it slightly like that, you know, into those analogous colors. All right. I'm not doing it, I don't know, in a huge way here, but it's a little bit more subtle, and I think it looks pretty effective. I did emboss the leaves, yeah. It was back probably when I was doing those embossing videos and playing around with things a little bit with the embossing powders. So that was another thing, you know, I couldn't add certain things up here. I didn't really have anything to add up there, but if I did or wanted to, couldn't do it. The only thing I can add to that, some of the leaves, if I wanted to, is a little bit of highlighting, or, you know what I mean, if I wanted to color some of those leaves or bring, you know, some sort of tone into them. I don't know what I would do, but you know, I might create kind of lighter leaves in the background, maybe. It's already too dense though, so I don't think I would do that, but you can see them right here. The clear embossing powder over the top of it. What's interesting to me is I didn't do it on the bottom. I think maybe that would have been, I was probably thinking it would be too redundant. I don't want that same textural form, raised form, around the entire thing, you know, so I probably did it like that. But that being said, I might want some other textures. This oak branch right here, it's reasonably close to the leaves. That's the name of the stamp for those that don't know. It's just called leaves. But some of this might be good too down here. I don't know if I'm too late for this, because let's just give it a try. You know, we do have the StazOn ink now. All right, let's wait for the StazOn. Because if I add that StazOn down here, I can't color anything over with the alcohol pens because it's just going to smear, unless I lock it down with another layer of spray sealant, but I don't want to do too much of that. I mean, I could, but I don't think I want to. Oh, wow, that is really a bright green there. Do you see that green in there? I don't know if I like that, but it is really, really rich. Let's go with that, and then kind of spread it around a little bit. So I'm diluting it, but I don't know. I wanted this to be a bolder, kind of gutsier piece. Anyway, so there. You see all those trees? Alright, let's go with some greens up here. It's kind of glowing a little bit more. Alright, so that, and yeah, brownish gray, one of my favorite colors, because it tones down a lot of the things that I do in my pieces. And it just blends them in a little bit more. It makes some things that are just way too bright a little bit more earthy looking and visually bearable. All right. Let's see. Texturally, she's a little bit different because the other areas have been spray sealed. But when I lock her down here, I'm going to spray seal again over the top of it, so it'll unify a little bit more. Yeah, I barely done any embossing either, which, I mean, you know, I'm sure you know, for all those things. So the only embossing I've done is, I don't know, what it was at, like a early, ooh, that's black. Earlier this year, maybe. Why is that so dark? That's not black, that's gray. Hello, Jeannie. Oh. What are you stamping, Jeannie? All right. Okay, so I think it's time to add in those little, oh, I don't know, fairies, I guess, orbs, you know, little creatures, fantasy creatures. Let me work this tree a little bit more here. Oh yeah, you know what I was doing? I was going with some colored pencil over something, and I was surprised at how it was applying in here. I was applying it in some of these areas and on this glossy cardstock print of this woman here. And this, I don't know, at least the Prismacolor black was going on there without any problem, which I wouldn't have thought. Like right in here, this black is applying really, really well. And I'm not sure why. It might be because there's that pigment ink underneath it, so it has a little bit of grain to it or something like that. Hello, Vintage Crap Girl. We're going to make it more ethereal for you here. We're going to take that ethereal and, I don't know, we're going to bump it up by, I don't know, 200%, I think. Whether or not it needs it or not, I don't know. Well, it needed it to me. Okay, but what I'm doing is I'm applying this, and I'm not sure why it's working. I'm not applying, this is black colored pencil, but I'm just doing it again in like a real light application right here, but it's applying on, like, you know, basically what I want. I mean, I have the, maybe the, I don't know, maybe when you spray seal with even like the Krylon triple thick, you know, I mean, it's a spray, so I'm not like slathering things, so it's like a layer of, you know, what is that called? Urethane over the top of it, where it's like super, you know, slick. It is really thick, but it is going down on the spray like little particles that are building up on each other. Okay, because I probably gave it like 3 layers, so I don't know. Maybe that's where it's becoming a little bit more textural for this. In this case, black colored pencil to stick to it. Okay, so on these trees, to the right of the moon, I am shading the right side of them for the most part. Shading them, it's like maybe 5 to 7% darker on the right side with the colored pencil. Now, if it's a dark tree, I can go a little bit darker with the pencil, like this one right here is very dark. So when you do this, you're just kind of reinforcing that notion of that light coming from over here. So it's darker on this side for this tree on the left side of the moon, and these ones are darker on the right side. So left side shadows, right side shadows, because of that moon right there. So I mean, the colored pencil, you know, it's easy to have a lot of control over this, about how much you apply. Down here in these rocks, if you want to do the same type of thing, you can make them a little bit darker on the base. It makes them a little more textural from the colored pencil applications. Not like on like a matte cardstock or anything like that, but just, you know, it's a little bit more textural, you know, than it was. I'm just adding it to a fairly dark area, but it makes those rocks seem a little bit more, I don't know, it gives them a little bit more character and volumes, you know, making them look real kind of rounded like that. All right. Castle scene. And wait a minute, what is that? 10th plus try with the same composition, or just a variation of it, Jeannie? Hello, buddy Cheryl. Good to see ya. If anyone else is on, hello to you all. Thanks for jumping in on this little tweaking vid. I thought about adding in like these little colored, not colored pencil, but glow in the dark little fairy elements in here, you know, where you, I don't know, flip off the light and maybe they'll be glowing in here, but I thought, I don't know. I mean, I still might, but I'm probably not going to do that. All right, so let's see. Maybe I should add her in at this point. I want people put their, you know, when they're sitting on a rock next to a waterfall, especially if they're barefoot, they kind of hang their foot over, you know, into the water slightly. And that's what I think I was going to do with her right here. So, okay, so if you just joined in, I have cut her out of a piece of, I stamped her on a piece of glossy, and then I just colored in with alcohol inks. I put a little bit of acrylic paint pen work into her dress there. I didn't want her too defined because she's sitting here kind of, you know, in the darkness. I've added a little bit of shading in there, and, you know, if it was, like I said, more realistic, she would probably be darker. You know, there'd be a whole lot of shadows over her, but, you know, this is, you know, we're doing artwork, so we want her to stand out. So it's more like you're doing, I don't know, like stage lighting or something like that, okay, where you can illuminate someone however you want them to be. All right, let's see. Just some crafter's glue. kind of angle her slightly like that, so her legs kind of like, you know, draping off the rock like that. All right, so now I have her down there like that. I mean, it's just one of those subtle things, but you see where she's sitting on the rock? That area underneath there, you know, we need to put a little bit of shading or just overall darkness in there. Okay, I can't get it right next to her with that, so let me go with the pen. Maybe I should have laid down a little bit of tone before, but I don't know. That looks okay. So I laid down, here's that really super dark gray, and see, it left a real strong, like, definitive line like that, but then I'll take my brownish gray or just any lighter tone, and I'll spread that out a little bit like that. Okay. Okay, that really dissolved it. Maybe I need to put down a little bit more. Let's vary that shadow slightly though. I'll kind of elongate it over here where it moves into that shadow, if I can. I think I have this on the wrong. No wonder. Okay, I have the cap on the wrong thing. Why in the world would it? I thought that was an awfully dark, I don't know, like darker gray. It was like black. Now this one's almost too light. Let's see. I don't want to do it just black. Here, let's go with the. This is like a. Here's a French blue, almost really dark. Okay, here we go. It's all a bit too bright. Let's throw down some of that blue. Let's go back to that black. Scumble some of that in there. And then go back to that darker gray like this. I probably spend too much time on this type of little detail here, but I'm kind of learning to use these pens here too, so with this degree of layering on here. Bring some of this up into her dress as well. All right, so she's kind of sitting in the scene reasonably well. What happened to my focus here? Ah. Let me restart. Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay, let's see. Similar variation, different shades. The figures keep getting lost in the scene. Huh. Are you kind of you're saying that they're just you want them to be kind of more of the center of focus, but are they getting lost in your textures and visual movement that you have going on there? What you can do is, I mean, you probably thought of this or you've done this, but you can just make the area around them a little bit darker, or with all of your kind of, your foreground work, exquisite foreground work, I should say, I might add. You can have directional types of things going to your figures, and it don't have to be right next to them. Like, like if I wanted something more, our figure is a point of focus, then you do things like this. Okay, so these things are like pointing to her like this. And it doesn't need to be like right next to someone making it look so obvious, like, point, point, point. You can also have stuff kind of across the scene like this, or if you have something like, I have that stamp called, what is it? It's a Bare Branch and Bare Branch Small. Even if it's something like over here that's coming in like this, okay, you can have them go like that, clear across the scene. You can kind of mask it. You don't want it too obvious, like, look at that. So you can kind of put something on there and then put something around it too. But from a kind of a subconscious type of level, especially if you have like three things going on with a figure or multiple figures or something like that, if you triangulate things too, so you have something like here and here. See, she's like this, and she would create this triangle, so I'd have these two things like this kind of pointing at her. Now, I don't need to do that in this one because it's like she's already, like, I have all these lines and she's looking right there, and she's like the lightest thing in that area, so I don't need to do that. But if things were a little bit busier, I would probably do something like that. Or you create visual dialogue going on, and it could just be like, like I said, a branch or something like that. Or you have something else looking over that way, like, there might be, I don't know, whatever, birds or a deer in the background, and it creates this kind of visual tension going to them. And you can point things out like that too. There's all kinds of things. Or you can just make area around them a little bit darker. Okay, so I think I can add in those little elements in here. So I did that on that last forest scene, and then I tweaked it again because I couldn't see some of the things that I added in there because too much of the white pigment ink obscured it. So I might, some of these things that we do in here, we might benefit from doing them like twice with layering. Specifically, okay, so I added these little orbs in here with my paint pens, okay? And I added like some red ones, to have kind of a dominant type of thing. It's like if you look up in the night sky, right? And if there's planets out there and they just kind of glow a little bit brighter. Like Mars, you can kind of just almost faintly make out, from the naked eye that it's red if you're in a dark enough area, or you can see Jupiter and Saturn. Okay, so anyways, these are like kind of like stars down here. So you have some different variations. You have some lighter and darker, what was it? White dwarfs and red giant. I forget what, my astronomy classes that I've taken. But you can do the same thing with this. All right, so I put these different colored things in that little last tweaking video, and then I added some white pigment ink over them so that they'd glow, but the white pigment ink kind of obscured a lot of the color. I thought I would have some of that color showing through, but it didn't really do that. It covered it up too much. So I spray sealed that, and then I added some more color over the top of it again, and then just added a really thin layer over the top of that one just to make it glow a little bit more, and I put this little center dot in there. So I'll show you what I'm talking about right here if you didn't see that video. Okay, so we have all these areas in here. Like this area is kind of a problem area. I try to make these areas nice and rich with tone and variation like that, but the difference in values within here, it's like, I don't know, like 3%, from all the way dark, and then that lighter area is like, it's barely 5% lighter. So I just think that there's some things that we can do with that, which is what I do in my skies. If I have a blank area in the sky, and if there's just nothing out there, it's just a good idea to put like a star or something like that up there, just to introduce some variation in there, both value-wise, light, dark, and texturally. Okay. Yeah, the Moonlight Dreamer. She's gonna save this piece. Tell you the truth, vintage scrap girl. It needed something in here. You know what I mean? There was no visual kind of landing spot in this scene. I don't know. It was the moon, but the moon's just like this open orb. You know what I mean? So we just needed something else in conjunction with it. We needed like a couple different things for the viewer to kind of enjoy in this piece. You know, there was nothing down here. I didn't have any like animal or something like that. All right, so let's go on with this. So remember, this isn't what this is going to look like in here. Well, I guess that's where these little things are going to be located, but oh, I don't know. Just some little fairies or whatever, kind of hanging out. And I like the idea. I was mentioning in my previous tweaking video that I just did, is that I was looking at the movie, some stills of Maleficent, and I just watched that movie too. I thought I just fast forwarded to that point where they're in this like darkened kind of enchanted forest. In the movie Maleficent, she's like a good, you know, she's like a hero as opposed to a villain. But anyways, the forest is really, it's really beautiful, even in its kind of darkened state when she got angry. But then there's these little orbs kind of hovering about like that. See, I like that. Even like that, I think it looks kind of a little bit more alive, and it gives just something for the viewer to enjoy in these areas. As a matter of fact, in these darker areas that, you know, are made to, you know, as they exist, are a little bit more boring looking. They might end up being something more interesting because these little areas of light against darkness stand out more. So you're taking a weakness and, you know, or what would otherwise be kind of a weaker area of the piece, and you're turning it into a strength, because, you know, these little fairies, like I said again, they're, you know, they're going to stand out more in terms of like contrast in these areas. All right, so I need to be careful not to just to go nuts with this, which would be really easy to do. Not that would be bad, but I don't want to do a tweaking video where I'm like toning down things that I add, you know, or too many things that I've added in. So what I'm doing is, after I add a few of these, I'm holding it up at arm's distance and taking a look and seeing what it looks like. When we start adding these little tiny elements like this, it's really easy to add just a huge amount of them, you know, because we're not like focusing on the overall. So hold it out at arm's distance and see what it looks like. Because these little these little types of elements can add quite a bit, you know, into the areas, you know, in which we're, you know, whatever, employing them. All right, so this is just, it's like a, I don't know, what is that? It's like a 40%, you know, violet maybe in terms of light and dark. So it's not standing out like hugely. And let's go with like, oh, this red one right here. It's pretty bright. Figures got lost in your textures. That's easy to do though, Jeannie. But then that's what we love about your pieces, the textural, kind of, I don't know, whatever, expressionistic applications like that. I mean, it's not, you know, I mean, figures, I mean, if they're kind of integrated like that, it can become, you know, like the spirit of the thing too. You know, where they're just kind of, they're more enveloped in the thing, which has its own kind of aesthetic and visual statement to it. But if you're specifically saying, hey, you know, I want those figures to stand out, then, you know, maybe you got to go with that. But if that's your, what is it, your 10th try, maybe your whatever, your aesthetic, your subconscious is, that's the way that this scene should be. And, you know, you're just gonna have to, you gotta listen to your, you know, Another word for that might be your gut, you know. It's telling you, it's directing you, you know, and that's kind of the, I don't know, many times that's the best way to, you know, to have it. Okay, so this red dot right here, I'm not going to add quite as many. This is what I'm going to try to avoid right here. If I have this red dot, I don't want it like dead smack center of the scene. Okay, so I want it a little bit off center. Okay, because if I put that right there, it's got, and it's like a glowing red dot, you're kind of giving it this kind of target aesthetic. Okay, so maybe a little bit like off to the side or something like that. I mean, you can have, you know, multiples too, but just kind of avoid that unless, like, you know, again, you're going for this kind of specific type of you know, statement. Okay, I'm going to add a few of these in here. All right. That. All right, so it looks like this. I probably need some more, like, in the background there or something. I'll just add it real small, though. Here's a little bit of a darker violet. Okay, go like that to that. Yeah, she helped a lot, huh, Linda? I didn't know what I was going to put in here. This was another, like, small area if I wanted to add, like, a, you know, little deer, but it was so small, you know, I just didn't think it would work. The deer silhouette was the other one that I was thinking about somewhere in here, like here. It just didn't fit kind of spatially, though. I mean, if I didn't have the, you know, these figures, I probably would have done something with an animal, but I don't know. I like the way that she looked in here. Better. It's because I didn't leave space for you know, anything specific. So, you know, being that we're doing the cutouts now, you know, why not? You know, they can get added in anywhere now if we can just cut them out. Linda was telling me that, you know, cutting out the figures and putting them in there, she felt like she was like cheating, because that's what I did on one of my pieces. It was like, oh my god, that's like so much easier than just like working around the figure that's up against like something and, you know, coloring in like a tree trunk or something like that. But for me, it's just like, I get the integration. Now, see, if I wanted to add something, you know, she's raised in here. But I don't know, everything's already in there. But, you know, if you can do something in terms of a process that makes things so much easier and faster, then just do it. And plus, you know, I mean, you know, it's, we're stampers. You know, the scissors are like an, you know, one of those, whatever, like, you know, what, 10 essentials or something like that you're going to always have in your kit. Okay, so if I could zoom in here, I would show you that I'm adding a little bit of this dot. I can't zoom in too far because I'm going to go out of focus here. But this little center dot I find is really key to this feeling of illumination. I think what I'm gonna do on some of these, because I like that little dot like that just as is, I think I'm gonna just leave some kind of you know, coated with, I'm not going to put the pigment ink over them. So we'll have some that are a little bit more, crisp, like a crispy figure or orb, and some will be a little bit more kind of glowing. All right, so look at that. It's like alive with well, creatures, you know, fireflies, whatever. And, you know, they have a little tint to them. I don't know if you can see that. Some are a little bit redder, some are a little bit violet. Let's vary this, because I'm not gonna put that little glow around all of them. But also, one of the things about my red ones, I can't see the red much anymore, so let's expand. It's like the size of like a, I don't know how many millimeters that is. In inches, it'd probably be like a, somewhere in between an eighth, maybe an eighth, I guess. All right, so see that? Those red ones are standing out a little bit more. And I'm making them a lot bigger, but I'll put that dot back in the center of them again, so it's not just like this red ball, you know, right there. You can always make things bigger, you know, but if I make it too big, I don't know if I'd have to just like scrape it off of this. So I don't know. If you're not sure, just make it of a certain size, then you can always go back to it. Oh, should I do? Let's do it. Let's do the interior instead of going with white. Maybe I'll do a little bit on a couple of them. Maybe I'll go with a warm kind of whatever, like nucleus. All right, that looks pretty good. It's just a little bit of a warmer tinge, of course, than white, but go with that, like that. All right. And let's add in a blue one. Or a couple blue ones. Here, we'll have the red ones always have like a little blue kind of satellite around them, or companion. Like about like that. I'm really tempted to add in some more splashing water down here, but I think we got, you know, now that we're adding these little fairy orbs, we don't want to go like too many dots everywhere. I don't think. And I'm tempted too to put one down here, or a couple down here in the foreground. But I think let's keep this band like this, going through here, because it's like a Milky Way, you know, of, you know, kind of lighting through here. In this band, this center band right here. So I think from a textural standpoint, maybe it'll bring more interest into this area. If I have it like going on out here, which I did in my last piece, but I didn't do too much of it, it might detract from this kind of center area. I don't know. It makes her seem a little bit more kind of magical too, if they're kind of all kind of at her distance, you know what I mean? Like they're all kind of, you know, whatever, coming out to you know, to visit or something like that. Here, I'll do this, since I'm not going to add more around in this other area. I'll do a little trail like this down here. See this little S curve too, like that? This little trail. Here, let me make it a little bit more subconsciously obvious. All right, there we go. All right. Those little red things, they help, don't they? Even though they're really small. It's such a different hue in here. But they kind of stand out quite a bit. I think, right? All right, let me see if I can add in that tiny little center dot on these ones. This one's still a little bit wet, but let's see, go like that. There. Yeah, that green would look pretty cool too, wouldn't it? This is what everyone always tells me, you know, that have you know, whatever, lightning bugs in their area. I used to do them all with white, but they'd say, hey, Kevin, you know, do them a little bit with green, you know. So here's to you in lightning bug territory. I see these as like little fairies or something like that, but they can be whatever. All right, so there's a little bit of green. It's added like a little bit of a, I don't know, variety too into the scene, I think. Let's see. Hello, Darlene. All the way in the PA. Winding down the evening. Thanks for joining in. Let's see, what time is it for you? Almost 11. Let's see here. Hello, Laura. I think I can get over the cheating part. Cut out. Whatever helps it, you know. We do enough work, you know what I mean, on our pieces, Linda. With coloring and, you know, the impressions. I'm talking about like all of us, you know. Just do whatever makes it easiest in order to create your piece. Okay, so let's add in a little bit of this white pigment ink to some of these things, and let's see if I can retain, you know, some of them without kind of eradicating kind of the, at least the hue of what I'm going after. So what we're going to do is we're just going to add this in a very light touch. Everyone does like way too much at first, okay? And a lot of it's because, you know, we don't use our white pigment ink pads a lot, so a lot of your pigment ink pads, they're like brand new, you know what I mean? So if you do it like a tiny little dip into the pad, like that, just barely touching it, sometimes people just go straight onto the page, and it leaves like a big blob, okay? But, okay, and I need to add more. Okay, so let me see here. Okay, now see, that's like way too much, so... Okay, I'll just use this lighter touch too, okay? So this... Okay, so that was like 13 little taps there, and you can barely see it, right? But you can tap a little bit harder too, you know. But you get the feel of it. But see that little glow like that? I don't know. It doesn't represent a glow, but that's just that little fuzzy kind of. It's like a 5-10% version of that white. Okay. So as you add that into some of these, and like I said, I'm not going to do them all, but. Like the ones at the distance, sometimes I go with a little bit of a lighter application of it. Here, I'll show it to you over here on this one. That's in a darker area, so you can see it a little bit more. But see how that's like glowing now? You can see the difference between those dots and this one, right? So it looks like it's illuminated. not, I think my mistake in that last piece is I illuminated like all of them, all right? Where I thought from a textural standpoint it probably looked better to have some, just like a crisp little dot next to that glowing one, like that. Okay, now let's see if I can put a little bit of this glow around that red one without completely eradicating the hue of it, that reddish, tinge. It's a little bit different. Do you see the difference between that one and this one over here? Okay, I needed more ink on this, but okay, that's a little bit too much. By the way, if you ever lay down too much, like that one's like too much here, I might need a new Q-tip. I'm trying to use that same one that I used, I don't know, previous scene. Here we go. But you get that right there. See those little twinkly, glowing little lights like that. All right, but see how I'm starting to lose that red, so I'm going to stop right there on that one. Oh, Jeannie's gonna, yeah, Jeannie, just cut your figures and put them on, like, right over the top of them. Speaking of that, that really reminds me of, that was this thing in, when I was in school. I graduated with a degree in illustration, and I think there was the question, I don't know, for some assignment sometime, is how do you kind of emphasize, certain figures in a scene or something like that, in an illustration. The reason why I remember that, because I don't know if that was a question that was like put out there for the class, but I had a smart aleck, I didn't say this like, meanly. I was just saying it was like a joke, but I think I said, like, you can use that old illustrator's trick of having like an arrow pointing at some little figure in an illustration, to bring a emphasis or attention to it. Maybe that was it. So how do you bring attention to some object or figure in a scene? So what I was saying, I mean, it's not too much different from that, but it's just using like branches or something like that. It is, I think with the warmer temperatures, because this has happened before in this camera, it's like 90 degrees inside the house here. But my camera has a hard time focusing, I think. I think that happened like last summer or something like that too. All right. This pigment is drying on my Q-tip faster. I'm thinking, what is going on here? I'm using Brilliance ink, and by the way, Brilliance ink it's a water-based pigment ink that's designed to dry fast on whatever surface you're using it on, but like on glossy cardstocks, surfaces that are a little bit less porous. For me, I don't mind keeping this. It's keeping this open like this. It's not like I'm keeping a stays-on pad open, or any type of solvent ink pad. But I don't know. Maybe if you're living in Arizona, whatever, New Mexico, and something like that, and it's just like this all the time, maybe you ought to put a lid on it like that. as you're working. Otherwise, you're going to be going through maybe a lot of ink. All right, we're getting these little orbs glowing around here. Let's see. You have to go over them again a little bit because this thin layer of pigment ink dries more see-through than what it looks like when it's been freshly applied or still a little bit wet. One of the things with this figure here, putting these little orbs like this in here, it kind of sets her into the scene a little bit more, I think. Maybe from, I don't know, like a thematic standpoint. Okay, but you see all those other little colors. I hope that's picking up some of the different colors. I think you can definitely see the reds in there. But do you see that little red center, or that little center in there, that little glowing center? That's what I was mentioning in my previous video, is put that little, white dot or something like that in the interior to really make those, these little, whatever they are, creatures kind of glow. If they're like stars in the sky too, put that little center area in there if you can. I mean, if it's like a dot like that small, you can't put a center in there, but if you make them a little bit big enough, the ones that are like that have a certain color tone to them, then try that with the white extra fine pen like that. I don't think I was doing that before. Well, for the most part, I was just using a white pen for the entire dot. I wasn't bringing in color, but I think the color really helps here. But yeah, when I was mentioning, I think she looks like integrated into the scene a little bit more now that these little things are going on. I don't know. Seems like she's set in there a little bit more so than before. I don't know. It's like she's conjuring them or something like that or whatever. Friend of the orb. Glad you like it, Darlene. Once I fussy cut out an image for a mask, I keep so... Yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, that's one of those things. I mean, once you cut out a mask, I mean, you're going to have it forever. So, yeah. That's a good way to go. I don't have too many masks, but like, see, like my bridge, like this one right here, this is the small one. I always have this kind of ready to go. I don't have too many designs where I need a mask, but some of them just they have straight edges on them, and if you're going to do them, stuff behind them or underneath them or something like that, which I do with those bridges usually, I need a mask. So that and Light Rocks and Waves, which is the lighthouse, that, I don't know, what else is there? The larger bridge. Okay, so these beams in here, I lost my beam in here because I colored over the top of it, so I'm going to reintroduce some of the beams that I lost here by coloring in my trees with some additional ink. And let's see. Spray coating this doesn't seem to be preventing myself from adding some additional white pigment ink into it. Sometimes it gets glossier and glossier, you're wondering if it's going to stick to it or adhere to it. But again, we will need to spray seal this when complete. Probably, I don't know. I guess if I framed it, I guess I wouldn't need to, but if it's going to be touched and handled, it's a good idea to spray seal it and to lock down these colors. Everything else is locked down pretty well. All right, so just kind of strengthening this beam a little bit too. Here's one other thing too. Okay, so see, this is the width of this beam right here, underneath here, okay? Now this one's real narrow, so I can't do it here, but one of the things that you can do that's pretty fun, if you're doing these types of light beams like this, especially now if you're spray sealing them, you can do a larger beam, like say it's this wide or something like that. You can add that in there, and then you can come in with a narrower one right on top of it and put that in there. And that has a really, cool look to it. It's like you're giving depth or dimension to, lighting in there. So it's not just like one value and one width. That being said, I mean, I don't do that too often, but now that I'm doing the spray sealing, where I can lock down a beam and then go over it with that, sometimes when I'm trying to go, if I don't lock it down and spray seal it in between layers of that white pigment ink, when I go in and if I try to do that narrow one on top of it, what happens is sometimes as you start removing some of that ink that you've already laid down, when it gets too thick. So spray sealing would be, an easy kind of fix for that, if you ever did that. Okay, so anyways, here's the I forgot that little area in between there. Some of these I'll just leave as is, so I'll have like varied values of beams too. Like that. You can have some of these beams kind of broken up too, and that looks more realistic anyways. Like, so here's this beam kind of coming across there. Let me fade it out a little bit like that. But you can kind of have them broken like that, and that's one of the things I started doing. I started varying things like that at some point in time, and I thought that looked better for these beams. When I first started doing it, it was just solid beams, and they were like really super uniform. But see, this one kind of peters out down this way. Started doing things like that, and I thought the lighting looked a little bit more kind of natural looking that way. All right. All right, do I need anything else in here? Okay, now if she wasn't a cutout, I would put this like fog or something like that coming in here like this, but if I start adding it like this, that's raised against that, and this is there's going to be like this space in between there. So, I'm going to avoid doing that. But I'd like to add a little bit of this over her so that she's a little bit more integrated into the whatever that the mist. But oh well. All right. All right, here's what I'm looking at too. Maybe I can add a little bit of this here. So I'm a little bit hesitant to add like too many highlights with this, because I add it usually, I do it in the form of dots in the scene, but we already have all these dots already, and I don't want this whole thing to look like it's kind of alive with like Christmas lights on everything like that. But I don't know, maybe just getting a little bit, in some of these areas, just to make some of these objects a little bit more three-dimensional looking. Here, I'll just do a little bit like this right here. And over here. That might be a little bit too much. You just kind of dab it off with your finger a little bit and smush it out while it's still wet like that. And that looks about right. And let's put some over these these rocks here. Some of these rocks there in this beam of light coming down here. See, I'm making the tops of them a little bit lighter. And maybe on some of these trees, I'll just put a little bit of highlighting on them. But maybe here I'll do it in the path of the beam so that it doesn't stand out too much. Nice, something like that. Okay. Well, I think that did what I was going for. A few little dots, like that's a boring area right there. All right. It's the fairy highway. Okay, I'm trying to see if everything's kind of, I get that going in here, and there's this one area back here has its own flow, but I don't want to add it over here. It's like there's this kind of, it's like they're traveling along with, you know, like a breeze or something like that, or, you know, along with the moonbeams or whatever, something like that. But I think that's it. I'll have to remember this. So this, I wasn't thinking about this when I was doing it, but this is what it looks like. You know, I don't want to have something like this down here, you know, 'cause I think it's going to be too much. But if you have like these trails of them going in like this, and maybe in the back like that, you know, instead of having just like patterns everywhere, I think that might be pretty interesting to really emphasize that on a future piece. I don't know, it's like, I don't know, like ant trails or something like that. You know what I mean? You know, they travel on like, you know, a trail or something like that, as opposed to just, you know, like, you know, all over the place. And I think that works for these little critters in here too. So, all right, quite a difference here in terms of the beginning. Pete, I should have taken a photograph of it. I guess maybe I do have a photograph from when I did this originally, but I should have done like a before and after piece. I would have liked to have seen that too. All right, let's see. Yeah, they picked up, you know, they gave us something interesting to look at in here, in these areas, I think, Darlene. I think they were like dead areas in here, like on my other Enchanted Forest piece. But now, I think in these areas right in here, it I just added them in there for me, but I don't know. It's almost like the most interesting areas are now those areas that were otherwise, just kind of like they're almost kind of like negative space in there before. So again, if you can kind of make, I don't know if it's like the just the description of it is turning like a weakness into a strength, but I think it really is, when you're playing these contrasts against one another like that. So um, you make it look, things don't have to look like this, with multiple colors like that. You can do it more like, they could have been in green and white or something like that, like, regular fireflies or something like that. But I don't know. For me, the red, there was already so much green going on in here, and blue green. Again, we can keep it thematic too, but I don't know. I just think that red in there, those little pops of red like that, were a nice little kind of hue change within the piece, and just I don't know, simple way to add them in there. So I think it would look great in a nighttime sky too, using all those little different colors like that. I'm going to do that in the future for night skies as well. I think I like that little reddish kind of planet there, kind of idea in a sky scene, not in this one. Let's see. Hello, Jen. Just kind of finishing up here. Are the leaves and vines? Yeah, you noticed that, huh? So Linda noticed that too. This is, I was probably playing around with, embossing before when I did this piece. So black, yeah, black with clear embossing up there like that. So, yeah, catches a little bit of that extra light in there inherently like that, but it looks like that. The thing that I like about the embossed things is not necessarily when it looks like that, but when it looks like this, okay? Like about like right there. Okay, so it's when that darkness, like right there, see that right there? It's otherwise just like a lost thing, but then when you can catch that light like that, so those darker spaces like that. Now this looks literally extreme on here because I have these like super bright studio lights on here, but if it's a little bit more like subtle like this, it puts variation up in there. I haven't been doing it a lot, like on all my pieces, but oh, I forgot about that reed stamp. Do I want to do that? I think I want to do this right here. I was mentioning that. Thanks for pointing that out, because I almost forgot to do something else here. I was going to add these reeds in here. I was just mentioning that this oak branch is really similar to these up here, except I didn't emboss these ones down here. I just wanted those top ones to be different. But I think from a textural standpoint, I just want to create a little bit more difference between that top area foliage and this bottom area. So I was going to do this in the stays on, because I'm not going to get anything else to stick to that. don't need to mask off this area. Like I said, I'm going to trim this probably anyways. This kind of border was on there just to kind of stiffen the page a little bit more. Okay, so here's what I'm doing right here. So it's down here. I mean, you can't see it too much. I didn't want to come up here too high with it, but it just changes that. It breaks up this oak branch patterning a little bit. It just kind of anchors it down there too. Anchors down the lower section. This is something that I don't do too often. Like Jeannie does all the time. But she uses like multiple like foreground elements, if not like, you know, like 30 of them. That's what it seems like, Jeannie. But I need to layer my textures a little bit more and vary them. I like it when I do that. A lot of times I do it kind of minimally, but I need to get, I don't know, I need to get more, whatever, gutsy and whatever. Do more exploration. A lot of times I use like twisting leaves or something like that, plus this, reed stamp or something like that. A lot of times it's with this one and something else. Okay, but see this right down here. See that little, it just changed the textures a little bit more. And when you have these little things like this too, they're a little bit more directional, like I was saying. They're pointing in towards the scene like this, okay? I mean, these things right here act as framing devices, but these things, when you have like these blades of grass like this, they're pointers, to, lead us into a scene like that. Or, it's like pointing us to, kind of the more interesting elements within the scene. So they're just little, I don't know, kind of like I don't know, whatever, helpers, visual kind of assistance in terms of a, directional visual path things, elements. Okay. Anyways, that is the new tweaked, I don't know what the name of this piece is, whatever it was named before has since changed names. Because like I said, the kind of the subject matter of it all kind of changed with that, especially with the figure. But I think, I don't know, what do you think the piece is about now? Is it about the figure? Is that the like the subject matter, or is it the little orbs that's the, or is it just the overall lighting and forest that's the emphasis? For me, before, I mean, it was about the moonlight and the beams going through there, but now it could be about multiple things. I think it's just it's a little bit more interesting to me, maybe in 3 different ways, with the figure and those little glowing little lights in there. To me, I'm probably looking at I'm looking at the orbs. Those are the visual points of interest for me now. It should be the figure, but maybe, I don't know, maybe that would change to me. Doing the orbs a lot in my scene, it helps it, huh, Linda? You know what I mean? Especially, see, this area in here, there was no reason for anyone to look in this area on my scene before, or in this area right here. But now, I mean, it's like, it's a real kind of, I don't know, little point of interest in there. And yeah, try that little thing, try the little purple and red one. I put the blue and the green in there, so some are a little bit more dull and some are brighter, I guess. But yeah, so check out the for like, if you're entering it into like a search engine, check out Maleficent and something like Dark Forest or something like that. And especially I'm talking about the more recent, not was it Sleeping Beauty. I don't think that had those orbs going in there. It needed like digital animation to do that. But check out those little orbs and see. There's some still shots too that aren't from the movie that people have posted, but you'll see that that reddish one. There's a lot of beautiful, like glowing purple ones as well that look really cool. But I got it better on this one than on my last scene. I retained more of the colors that I laid down, so I added a little bit more of that. I didn't know if I was going to have to add a white dot and then color it with a, like an alcohol pen to get a little bit of a brighter, purple or something like that I was going after. But I think I just put less pigment ink over the top of that, and I think it helped a lot. So, yeah. Yeah, Darlene. I need to do more embossing too. I need to do. See, I haven't done like uh, darker cardstocks with different types of embossing. I don't know, like those holographic embossing powders, stuff like that. I need to do more of that. In fact, I think I bought some. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I got like that holographic embossing powder that I haven't tried yet. So I started experimenting around. This is like going back like 30 years, when everyone was embossing, or 20, but for me, it was real new because I didn't really do like any of that. I was going to say do too much of that, but I really didn't do any of it. But it's not that I didn't like the look or anything like that, but I don't know. I really need to explore this, and I don't know. I don't see people doing quite as much embossing anymore as a lot of other techniques. But the holographic ones. Wasn't there glow in the dark embossing powder? I don't remember, but stuff like that, like I thought about like those stickles, when I was coming and I was going to tweak this. I thought a little bit of like shimmery types of whatever, I don't know, wink of Stella pen down here. Okay, so I'm starting to remember that. I think maybe that'd be overkill if I added like glittery types of things down here now that this is going on up here. But I think that would have been pretty cool in here, something really reflective. If I can do it real subtle, I would, but I don't know, I'll have to see what I have in terms of doing something like that. There might be a tweaking 2 video on this. I'm just joking. But yeah, the other thing too, what I mentioned was the glow in the dark thing. So can you imagine, doing some of these in like this glow in the dark paint? I don't know if it's the thing about this glow in the dark paint, unless you like layer, like slather a bunch of it down and you charge it up with light, and then you turn off the light, will it kind of glow for a while? Sometimes when I'm doing like this type of thing and that amount of it right there, it holds its charge for like 2 seconds. You know what I mean? But I don't know, maybe if you're doing like black art, or black light art, that'd be pretty cool. So, but I thought about that too. I thought about maybe doing some of these little lightning bug types of things in a glow in the dark paint. And then I would flip off the lights and see if these things kind of glowed in here. But I thought if I do that though, nothing else is going to glow. So all we're going to see is like these little dots in here, and the figures won't show up unless I put like a light, almost invisible, layer of them in there on like the moon and the waterfalls in there. But I don't know. I'm going to leave that for another piece. I didn't want to do it on this one. Let's see. Try the technique there. Yeah, I mean, it's super easy to do. Just in your glowing things, just remember, just don't use. You want to get it where like that glow right there, or right there, is like 20 taps or something like that, meaning that this is really very, very dry. And that's how you get that really super light application of the of that glowing little, surrounding, I don't know, whatever. It's like not a halo, but what do you call those types of things around there? Aura, not aura. I can't think of it. All right, folks. Oh, yeah, the moonbeams for you, Jen, huh? Well, those are definitely the visual direction type of thing for me. I guess you're right. You know what I mean? If I looked at this piece, and if I hadn't seen like those moonbeam types of things before, I think I would. That's what I'd probably be drawn to too, because those are the things that are creating kind of like all of the visual movement of the piece. I don't know. I wasn't even like looking at them hardly on this one. I guess it's because this one's like the point of emphasis for me on this video right here was just doing the orbs. So that, I guess that's what I'm looking at like completely. But yeah, when you know what I mean? If I just flipped this open and hadn't seen the scene before, yeah, I think you're right. It'd be the beams that are probably the thing that I'm drawn to. And then I would get sucked in here. I'd look like this. My visual path probably like this and here, and then I would come out here and then back around like this and then go through here, you know, type of thing. So I'm going to do a workshop for someone that picked up like a private class, and I'm catering it around her. You cater around, you know what I mean? Someone not quite sure what they want to do. Sometimes they'll ask me, hey, do you have any ideas? But I looked at her pieces and all really fantastic. And she really has a really good grasp of a lot of different media too. But one of the things that I thought she might be interested in and can employ a little bit more is the idea of kind of the visual path in a piece. Okay, so on one of her pieces, there was a lot of trees around on the perimeter of the card, you know, lying back at your back and looking up at the stars type of thing. And that, you know, that was like one of those things, but collectively on all of her pieces, really awesome pieces. And they looked absolutely finished to me. But one of the things that you can take a look at pieces, and if you look at them in a different way, you consider the visual path that, you know, people are going to go on. And you can kind of tweak these things, and you can see yourself, especially in larger pieces, and not really so much on quarter-page cards, you know, where people take in the whole thing, like, instantly, right? But on larger pieces like this, one of the things that you can kind of keep in mind is the visual path that people are going to take when they're looking at a piece that has a decent amount of area to it. So, you know, when you're looking at this and they're coming out like this, see, it's kind of this triangulated thing. And there's different things that you can put into things where if things are kind of in just a perimeter pattern like this, you can, you know, put, like, she had all these trees facing inward like this, but if you put a little bit of a cloud in there like this or something like in the background, or like a real subtle one, then, you know, when people are going around like this, there's a little bit of a change in there, you know. So instead of just a uniform, even thing, or they're moving at an equal speed with all equal looking trees kind of pointed on the inside like that, you make some a little bit lighter, or you put a cloud here so that the speed's like this, and it slows down a little bit, and it goes like this, slows down a little bit, you know, where you do different things like this. So right here, it's faster, right? Because we have these crisp beams, but then you move down here and it's kind of like foggy and misty, so the speed's going to be a little bit different. So there's a change of speed, and it goes like that. It's like, so it's like a song, all right? So you want different kind of, you can have different tempos and different kind of lengths of notes, you know, whole notes, half notes, whatever, you know. But you can change tempo in there too, and you can do that visually in a piece, you know. So that's one of those things that that we're going to be talking about in that class. I talk about, you know, these ones too. It's not that you have to take a private class for that, but it's just one of those other things. So take a look at that, you know, and if you're doing like a 8.5 by 11s or something like that, and consider those little types of things like that. So you can consider these like big things like this, and maybe these are a little like little 16th notes if you're into music. All right. So anyways, hope you guys have a nice rest of evening. Hope you like the orbs. Some people might hate them, you know, because they say, hey, that reminds me of, it looks like bugs are flying around, or, you know, or like little mosquitoes or something like that. Where they have to, like, swat them away from their face. Hope you try the glowing orbs or stars. What else can be? Orbs, stars, fireflies, etc. All right, everyone. Good night. Hope to see you again in the next live stream.